In today's Deswik.MDM demonstration, we will be going through a workflow that contains multiple stages with electronic approvals, attaching files, and a customized checklist that is required for the end user to fill out before this design gets approved and issued for construction. So the window that you notice here, I am in the Deswik.MDM client application, specifically the workflow tab. The workflow that we're going to be interested in here is issued for construction development design. I'm going to go ahead and click on this tab here. Notice that this workflow has been prioritized as critical. This is because somebody within Access that they have a role to do so can change this priority. And this is really important because other users who will be signing off will always be seeing this task at the top of their screen. Now, we have the opportunity to understand this workflow here. This workflow contains 3 stages. One being the creation of the development design, so doing this design within Deswik CAD. 2 being the general approvals, and 3 being maybe the senior level or manager level sign off. These workflows are set up strategically in a way that sets the stages that will allow users to potentially peer review it before potentially additional users wanting to sign off that area. So as we can see here, the first stage is to do the development design. I've gone ahead and completed this stage just for time purposes. We are now in our general approval stage here. And within this general approval stage, I can see that geotech needs to approve, engineering needs to approve, and geology. In my example, they are all blue because I have admin rights and I can do all of these tasks. But in a site-specific example, only engineering can approve engineering and geotech can approve geotech and so on from there. So as we go through this workflow, we really want to be thinking about, if we've ever lost paper signatures while routing for approvals, or if we ever want to do an audit and go back and understand how that design was approved throughout the process. Or in certain situations, maybe we're off-site and we're required to approve a design, but we don't have a piece of paper in front of our PC. So this example here is going to go through this process using the MDM system. So I do have an area of interest that I need to sign off on. What does that design look like? What does that PDF look like? If I go ahead now and click this PDF sign off task here, I can actually see the design of interest that I will be signing off. There are comments that have been placed. This yellow area here will be the design area of interest, and then there's these placeholders. These placeholders here are going to allow us to sign off and then automatically placing our signatures and comments within these boxes. And then I can also notice that a checklist was filled out. I can see the water stamp of it being in progress inside of here. A few checklists still are required to be filled out. So I'm going to hit close here, and this is just the PDF. Certain individuals will be fine potentially with approving the PDF, but maybe we're doing a peer review and we need to understand this drawing in 3D space. So I'm going to go into Deswik CAD now and just notice I am in document 1, layer control, nothing's inside. So this is our generic general Deswik CAD as we've always seen it when we open up an empty document. But I do have this MDM plugin that I have been talking about in the last couple of videos. Now this plugin is going to allow me to reference data of interest. So specifically, I'm going to go to this in progress tab and I'm going to find that workflow. So it's this 37541E and I'm going to click append. So in this drawing itself, I can now see I have this design that is currently in progress of being approved. It's not approved yet. It's living in the in progress phase. Our goal is to get this pushed to the appropriate short-term design issued for construction categories for center lines, walls, and solids, and so forth. So potentially I want to just understand the voids around this area. I have an opportunity here to hit my views, and within my views here, I'm just going to select this solid and I'm going to go into my current. I'll hit filter by spatial bounds and notice in here what it's done, it's created a 3D box. I'll just make it a little bit bigger within here. And really what I want to understand is, are there any interactions within this design that's being approved? Are there any stopes that are potentially running through this, or drill holes that are running through it? I'll make it a little bit bigger to display. And so now I'll go into my views, and I'm going to click my void model review. So at this point now, it's going to be using that spatial box of interest, and it's going to be stating if there are any types of entities that are running through this drawing of interest using our 3D spatial box. And as I can see here, we have some data that is located within this box. I'm just going to go back into my MDM screen here, and I'm going to turn off this area from my filter box, and it never crops it. So some of this data was just right outside that box itself. Now that being said, I can still see my box of interest, and no drill holes are intersecting it, no stopes are intersecting it. I can see my development above and below within this drawing of interest. I can also bring in additional information such as our geology faults and our grade shells and so forth, and do any additional analysis that is required from my end. At this point now though, I am happy with the design, so I'm going to go back into our drawing here, and I will choose engineering approval. So as I've gone into here, I need to go ahead and sign off this design. So this example here, I do not have a checklist to fill out, so I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. I can generate the alias from my computer, or let's just say here I can go ahead and enter in engineering here as if I am signing off on my iPad or iPhone, which I will talk about doing so on the web browser. So I'll go here and type in peer review and hit save. At this point now, the engineering task has been completed. We have two more tasks of interest, one being the geotech, and the geotech team member does require to do a checklist in this example. So I can click on this one, standard primary ground support reviewed. We can hit yes, and we can even add additional comments here that is required for maybe a certain type of profile. So I can say standard ground support D. I'll hit apply, and it just remembered my previous one here. I'll go ahead and hit generate signature, and I'll put my comment here also. I'll hit save. And one more task I have within the stage is for our geology team to attach a report. So potentially they don't need to do a checklist or an approval. They need to attach some type of analysis of it being in Excel or a Word report or a PDF or PowerPoint. It can be any type of attachment. I'll go ahead now and hit choose file. And I will go ahead and find a PDF to attach. This is just an example, so I'll go ahead and choose this. And task is complete. Geology fault to be mapped, and I'll hit save. So notice all these comments that are currently being added into this area of interest. So I am just in my MDM client application here. When it gets sent to each stage, each one of these different department representatives are receiving emails, and those emails are going to send them directly to a web browser to complete these tasks of interest. So notice here, senior geology approval and senior chief engineer. I'm just going to go ahead now and open up the web browser view. And this is something that they'd be seeing potentially within an outside source, depending on their laptop or iPad or iPhone that they want to be clicking on through their email notification. So I'm going to choose my task being maybe geology team to approve. But I guess what exactly am I approving? I can see the PDF sign-offs, the checklist, all of these previous documents here. If I go into my geotech information, I can see the checklist that was filled out and so forth from there. And now if I click on the PDF sign-offs here, I can slowly start seeing some of these signatures being added within the area here, some comments being added, and some checklists being added. So our goal now is to complete these last two tasks that are living within this third stage, senior approvals. So now I want to do my senior geology approval within the MDM. And I'm going to go here and fill out my checklist with the block model reviewed, drill hole warning. We'll hit apply. I'll hit approve. this point here, I'll go ahead and write geo. Again, thinking that we are on our web browser from a different device, we can potentially even use our finger to draw out that signature. I'll hit task is complete and hit save. So at this point now I am in my last stage of interest or my task of interest. I'm going to open back up the client. So it should look very similar, but the biggest difference is we have this preview screen. So notice there's in progress, there's a 61. This is going to be the one that we want to get approved. If I click preview here, this is our in progress data set within this area of interest. Our goal is to get this data into the appropriate categories here are issued for construction. So right now, this in progress can only be seen by certain stakeholders, but our categories here are approved design data that all users at the site can see. So to get this data merged into the appropriate categories, we need to finish our approval process. So I'll choose workflows, and this is the last task here, Senior Chief Engineer. There's no checklist here. They can review the document, review all the previous information. Technically, they can hit reject and they can send it all the way back to stage 1 and place comments associated with it, or stage 2, maybe geology team need to attach a different report and so forth from there. The cool part about this is it's all tracked. So if somebody does reject it at any point, you'll always know the full story and the full history of this design. I'm going to go ahead and hit approve here, and I'll hit generate signature, or I can clear it. I'm just going to put for senior engineer here, and I'll go my task is complete, and I'll now hit save. At this point now we have a full history of all of the comments that were created. I have this PDF sign off. If I click on this entity here, I can see each one of the signatures populated in this area. I can see all the checklists created within a PDF bundle. If I go back into my comments here, I can see the full history, but more importantly now, if I go to the preview screen, and let's say if we look at these in progress ones, notice that number 61 is not here anymore. Where does that live? I'll load one of these views that will toggle on automatically our categories that we're interested in. So right now it is going to toggle on the different categories that are going to be displaying. And so notice right here, we can see all of our approvals of interest here. So these drawings, as I can view, are the ones that are approved within the MDM environment. So if I go into my properties here and I click on these different entities, I can start reviewing this data that has been approved. So I just clicked on the walls. Notice the walls here have attributes associated with them. If I click on a barricade, there's even comments that are required for the team, so review fault before proceeding. If I go ahead and click on this MDM URL here, it's going to automatically ping me to the full history of this design. At any point, if I want to understand the checklist that was filled out, or if I want to re-download that PDF that was signed off, I can see the full documentation. Or as geology went ahead and they did assign a document or attach a document, I can download that document directly to my drive here and maybe start understanding why this design was created in this type of way. So this is the full process from start to finish within an MDM environment of doing a little bit more of a complex style of workflow that contains multiple stages, multiple different departments collaborating together to produce an execution designs with the sign-offs from the MDM.